We are happy today to have Sarah Ressler Wright with us for today's webinar. Today's webinar is Building Vocabulary for Success on High-Stakes Tests, which is extremely important, and we're always happy to have Sarah with us. Sarah is a part of the Sadlier family. She has been our blogger for Vocab Gal for the past several years, and I work very closely with her. She has been a teacher, and she has taught for 13 years English Language Arts and has been awarded Ohio's English Teacher of the Year Award. She is also a National Board Certified Teacher, and currently she's the head librarian at her school. So I also want to just plug her for Vocab Gal. She does a great job with sharing vocabulary instructional strategies, building vocabulary in a variety of ways, activities, and tips. So I welcome Sarah Ressler Wright to this afternoon's webinar. Thank you so much, Sarah, for coming along.
Thanks, Laura. And Laura's going to share the screen so that you're going to see my screen instead. And here we are. And so now you get to see my awesome screen with the same title slide. But let's move on. And so really here, our goal today in our very short webinar is so that you walk away knowing test skills and strategies to give to your students so they can do well on whatever tests they encounter. And I'd like to sort of start with any vocabulary instruction. And we as English teachers are always wanting our kids to do well on these standardized tests, and so much of it is vocabulary. So, and the heart and the fundamental root that I will always come back to is what William Nagy, sort of the guru of vocabulary education, and he says that we have to first integrate the words into what we do every day, that we have to reiterate these words all the time. And so in our classrooms, in our directions, in our comments to students, in just really everyday conversations, we reiterate these words so they become integrated into just our general discussions and assignments of the day. And then finally, we make them relevant. And so although students say, oh, this is test prep, why is this relevant to real life? We can say, look, it's for test prep, which is relevant to your life in school, and to make sure that you do well in those successes, but it's also relevant outside of school. So always giving them reasons and rationales for learning new words. All right. So the first thing you're going to get as part of this webinar is this awesome handout that's basically 3 top strategies on how to answer test questions. And really what I like to do is I print out this handout and I go through them with students, and you can see there's an example here, and then you can give some other examples from your own standardized test practice that you have, and so they can compare the questions that you have on your practice sheet with these strategies and say, oh, that's strategy number 1, ooh, that's strategy number 3. And so here's what they are. The first strategy is easy. You may have already sort of helped students to do this, but the question, if the question asks you to define a word, replace the word with each of your answer choices. So in this case, we have the little Bo Peep. Oops, and that inevitably happens to me, so I'm just going to turn on my lamp. Okay, so we have little Bo Peep has lost her sheep, our lovely rhyme, so it's nice and easy. Hopefully students aren't too stressed out about it. And so the question is, what's the definition of flagging? And so we have our 4 option choices, and so what we want to do is replace. So we take wagging and we say, okay, shaking their tails behind them. Well, that doesn't sound too bad. Movement their tails behind them. Ooh, that doesn't sound good. So I can know that I can eliminate that answer. Running their tails behind them. That's not quite right. Jumping their tails behind them. No, that doesn't really sound right either. So process of elimination, by actually substituting in each of the answers, we can get the answer of shaking. All right. So that's sort of the first basic strategy that they can see very clearly here, and then hopefully apply to their own standardized test practice. My second one is really helping the students find that textual evidence and justify their answer. So again, we have the same passage, the little Bo Peep, and the question says, why should she be happy? So our first answer is she's lost her sheep. I can't find anything in the passage that justifies that she should be happy because she lost her sheep. She says she's lost them. She doesn't know where to find them. There's nothing that says that she's happy about this. Her sheep will return on their own. Okay, is there anything in the text that says that? Well, it says leave them alone and they'll come home. So that says her sheep will return on their own. There's some textual evidence that I can underline to support that section. Her sheep like to wag their tails. It says wagging their tails behind them, but there's nothing else to suggest that they like doing that. So I don't have any textual evidence to support that. She cannot find her sheep. This is true. She doesn't know where to find them, but there's nothing that supports that she's happy about that. So again, it's where can we find the textual evidence? And so our correct answer is B. We've underlined this leave them alone and they'll come home because that's the key factor here. And then again, it's about underlining context clues, and especially I know I really stress this to my students, is crossing out answers that don't make sense. So what does the story say about the sheep? They don't like Little Bo Peep. They like to eat biscuits when they come home. They have been trained to find their home. And they are happiest when they're lost. Okay, so there's nothing that says they don't like Little Bo Peep. And so we're going to underline this section because it says they'll come home. They've been trained how to find their home. And we can cross out these two answers because we don't know we don't have any evidence they don't like Little Bo Peep. We don't have any evidence of biscuits. So we can sort of narrow it down to C and D. They've been trained how to find their home, or they're happiest when they're lost. And sort of the best answer is they've been trained to find their way home. That's not actually in the passage, but we can infer that based on crossing out and eliminating the answers that don't make any sense, and finding some justification in that they'll come home even if they are left alone. So those are the top 3 tips that are in there, and you can, again, go through those with your students and then apply them to some practice test sheets, and hopefully those 3 tips will work. The other tip sheet I have for you is preparing for the SAT and ACT. And I know that many of you are in elementary grades and don't have students who are ready for the SAT or ACT yet, and that is totally fine. We labeled it SAT, ACT. This really works for great vocabulary instruction and really for any standardized tests. So don't let the title throw you. And my first tip, and again, it's going back to this William Nagy idea that we have to integrate words and reiterate words often. And so I like to use vocabulary in my daily instructions. And so and actually our daily conversations in this case, because one of our words was approbation, which means deserving of praise, and our other one is meritorious, which also means they did something worthy of merit. And so I would say all the time, oh, Susie, you had a pencil today. Let's all give Susie approbation for bringing in her supplies. Or, oh, everyone turned in their papers. That's so meritorious of you, class. Great job, pat yourself on the back. And so these very complicated words became mundane because I said approbation and meritorious every single day. Same thing with belligerent and truculent. Those are tough words, but if we say, oh, that other class, we can hear them through the walls, they're being so belligerent, or oh, that person didn't listen to the directions, they were being quite truculent. Again, these complicated words suddenly sound mundane or sound easy because you've reiterated them so often. The second way that I like to really help vocabulary be less stressful to your students is to match these tough words with easy synonyms. So again, when they think, okay, well, what is this word sanguine? I can't use this word ever. And I say, well, guys, think about it as jolly. Santa Claus is a sanguine kind of guy. And so you can, well, we all know that Santa, we like to often say Santa is jolly. So instead, saying sanguine really then makes it easy. Sanguine, jolly, synonyms. However, not every word comes with one easy synonym to remember. So like inveigh means to urge strongly. So you have to think of a phrase, not just a single word. But again, it's these tough words that students feel intimidated by, and they feel intimidated on tests. If they're used to hearing and seeing tough words, and they know they can match them with synonyms that are easy, even if it's not a word that they've actually encountered, that you've actually studied, they feel comfortable and confident with tough words and tough texts so that they can use strategies and feel more comfortable tackling these hard tests. I also really emphasize the concept of reiteration. And so anytime a student says a word correctly, not just, hey, Ms. Ressler, my vocabulary word is meritorious, but if they say, oh, I am deserving of approbation and it was so meritorious of me because I turned in my paper, Johnny will get a sticker. And I usually have somebody else in charge of the stickers because we know we're running around doing everything else. So really just knowing that they get some sort of silly little reward for using the vocabulary gives them that incentive, or, oh, I don't want to look, you know, like the smart one in the class, I don't want to use those words, but oh, I did it for the sticker, then they'll want to use them. And then again, every assignment my students turn in has to have at least 2 or 3 vocabulary words. And this is just, they know it, it's a routine, and so any worksheet, any handout, any exit slip, any essay, I usually make it double and I say at least 6 words. But just the expectation is that they use their vocabulary in their writing. So again, it's reiterating those words to them, it's making them mundane. It's great. And then finally, anytime we had discussions, if we had Socratic seminars or more formalized discussions, part of their points not only were making valid quotes and supporting their evidence, but also using vocabulary in their phrasing. Number 4, you will recognize, because not just on standardized tests, but when I give my students vocabulary tests, often it is a sentence that they have to fill in the blank, and so they have to underline their context clues, and they have to fill in, if they have a word bank, they're filling in with what sounds best to them. So using this idea of reading sentences aloud with each vocabulary word is a strategy for standardized tests, but it's also a great strategy if you're using sentences and having the students fill in the blanks for their vocabulary test. So again, having them learn to trust their instincts, learning to see where context clues are being used is a great strategy, not just for standardized tests. And then finally, the idea of breaking down word parts. And I don't subscribe to the idea of just teaching only word parts, because I think it gets confusing easily. But if the word malevolent comes up, or benevolent, then we just talk about bene and mal, and hey, look, bene, a benign tumor versus a malignant tumor. What are other words that start with these beginning word parts? And so making it part of the lesson routine so that they have a set concept of other words and can try and use their word part strategies to attack new words is another great strategy, as you can again see for the SAT and ACT tests, but also for tests in general, and for helping you really make vocabulary an integral part of your classroom. So if you want more of my specific SAT, ACT webinar, we want to point out where all my webinars are. So you just literally go to sadlerschool.com and you click on vocabulary, because there's lots on vocabulary, and you'll drop it down because it was a higher grade one. So you'll see vocabulary workshop grade 6 through 12 that you click right there. And then at the bottom left, you'll see where it says webinars. So you'll click that button. And then you can see you can sign up for more webinars. The ones that are on demand mean I've already done them and you can access them at any time. So you can see lots of those down there anytime you want them. And so I also feel like having some vocabulary activities to help you teach your students some of those high-level vocabulary words and to bring them into your classroom is a way to really do better on standardized tests. The more that we can play fun activities and games and see students having success with those, and then they can apply those skills to their testing. And I just love this Some e-card. I love Some e-cards that are positive and uplifting. So here's a positive and uplifting one for all of us. So I just wanted to highlight a couple that really can help your students see vocabulary and use it and play with it. If you have a Scrabble board, or you can print out some ones that are online, Scrabble Jr works really well too. We have a basically Scrabble-ese, where students aren't just picking any word to make into a Scrabble word, but actually having to pick their vocabulary words to use for Scrabble. And so you can see here's the setup and the rules in case you forget how to play or haven't played very often, which I don't. And so I really like this. And then this beautiful score sheet where we can see how many points each are worth and then what it is. And even if you don't have a Scrabble board, and if you just have the numbers up, how much each letter is worth, and want to sort of compete with who can make the most, the highest number vocabulary words, what vocabulary word has the highest number of points based on the sort of the Scrabble score. You can really do a lot with the Scrabble-ese concept, and it doesn't have to be just playing Scrabble like you're used to. So have some fun, play some Scrabble, at least use this score sheet because it's so lovely and beautiful, and you really can do a lot and see the kids see that relevant value to vocabulary. It's not just something for a test, but it's also fun for playing games with your families. This is my most delicious activity that really makes me hungry every time I look at it, because basically it's building a sundae. But you get the sheet, and then the students cut out and they build their own, and they can paste it onto a separate piece of paper. So you obviously will always start with a bowl. I like to pick brownies, maybe a cookie or a wafer as well, maybe the triple scoops of ice cream, because that's how I roll, a chocolate shell on top, some whipped cream, a strawberry, because I'm not really a cherry kind of gal, and then I do like some nuts. So I'm going to put that all in my bowl, and notice for each thing, every piece they choose, they have to write about it with a vocabulary word in some way, make it a link. The sundae, the ice cream was meritorious because it was so tall, and the brownie was worthy of approbation because it had just been baked that day. And then after they label each aspect of their sundae, they have to create an overall very tantalizing description. So again, making it relevant, making vocabulary fun, and helping them see words and concepts can be enjoyable as well. This one is a fun one because it's cold in winter right now. Maybe you're in Texas, I envy you. But here, think like a winter athlete. The students just fill in the bubbles, but what are they thinking? And they have to use vocabulary as they do so. And then I love this one because basically kids get to create their very own awards, and it can be an award for showing up to school, it can be an award for walking the dog, it can be an award for sitting still in your class. But the award description or the title has to have at least a vocabulary word. So the meritorious award for sleeping, and then they can write their little description or on the back basically what the award is for and who is deserving of this award. So a little fun activity on a quick day. And so here are all the different handouts. You're going to get an email that Laura's going to send you tomorrow that are going to give you these basic test strategies, these SAT, ACT strategies, and then again, all of the activities that I just talked about in games. You'll get all of them sent to you in your email. So hopefully you have this sense of some test skills and strategies and just some basic skills and strategies to use in your classroom to help students really feel like they can take ownership of testing and not be intimidated by tough testing things that we see lately happening. So again, like Laura said earlier, all of these resources and so many more you can find if you just Google me, Google Vocab Gal. All the resources are here, and then you can also divide it by games, writing with vocabulary, we have the word of the week, author interviews, all kinds of great things. And I feel really lucky that as a teacher I get to create these ideas, and then there's a graphics team that makes them beautiful, and you really get these amazing handouts and resources and ideas all for free, always from Sadler. So I'm really excited to be a part of the Sadler family. And Laura, what questions can I answer from our listeners? Laura's going to answer me momentarily. I think she's on pause right now.
I am on mute.
Okay.
Thank you so much. Sorry. Thank you so much, Sarah. Once again, sharing or hearing your ideas really brings it home for a lot of people. I am proud to say that we have over 100 people on this webinar. So if you hear of other people that were not able to get on, we did have a limit of 100. So I'm sorry about that. But as Sarah says, everyone will be getting the handouts. You'll be getting an email with the link to the webinar so that you can share with your colleagues, and that will come to you in an email within the next 24 hours. So let's go to some of the questions that have been written in here. So the first one is, what does your research indicate, or what does your research indicate is the most effective way to improve high school students' vocabulary? I think that would go for all students, but, and do you have references?
So I feel like I talked a lot on the webinar about William Nagy's research, and he really is the guru that all research that follows sort of use his as a baseline, and I think it's really true that the multiple exposures concept, that students really have to see these words often, and we know that sort of reading it once in a book isn't going to let it sink in. You have to see it a great deal. So again, this idea of integrating the words into everything that you do, reiterating the words over and over again until they just think of approbation as a mundane word, and then really making it relevant to the students. Why should I learn this word? We already know one word, so why do I need multiple? And also, just as a side plug, I have a bunch of really awesome children's and young adult authors who have said why words are great and why students should learn vocabulary. Because basically I accosted Jared Krasaska and John Green and Veronica Roth and said, look, my students aren't listening to me when I say you have to know vocabulary, but what do you think? And so they talk about being writers and how they need to learn more words to be to have more weapons in their arsenal, Bray said, and lots of other great things. So definitely show those to your students as well.
Very good. Here's a question. I have a literature program, and I draw my vocabulary words from that. I guess from that piece of literature each week or whatever. How would you supplement your vocabulary words aside from the literature?
And that's a really good question. Obviously, I have been an English teacher for a very long time. I am the librarian now, but I mentor 6 teachers, so I am in the classroom a lot. And I work with my teachers. The problem with doing it just from the literature is that they see it once, and then they have to look it up in a dictionary, and that takes a long time. And it just becomes sort of this cumbersome thing, like, well, why, if Frankenstein had this word in it once, why do I care? And I have always used the Sadler books. That's sort of how I got this gig, is I just went up to them and said, I love your books, and I have looked at all the vocabulary books, and yours is my favorite. And so I'm a customer as well as a consumer, I guess. But really, I find that using a vocabulary book, that structure where it has multiple uses and it has the definition already set, it has lots of sentences with that word over and over again, is really helpful, so that the students don't just see one sentence in one book and can't really figure out what the definition means. They see several example sentences, there's online activities, there's a definition that they can understand, and so again, this idea of multiple exposures and multiple sort of examples being given is really helpful. So that's sort of my best, is that then in the literature it shows up. And the Sadler book actually at the end of every unit has a passage from a canonical text that has those vocabulary words embedded. It's an exercise so the kids can say, does this show up in real life? Yeah, it does, and it shows up in classical text. And then as we read Fahrenheit 451, Stolid shows up on the first page. And we read all these great classics of literature, and the vocabulary is already there, just because the Sadler book has great vocabulary in it. So, again, a plug.
Thank you.
I'm a believer.
Thank you so much. The great question. So here's another one. What are your favorite ways to expose yourself to new vocabulary?
Oh, that's a really good question. Friends, I know, my friends love to use vocabulary words around me. First, because they know that their automatic response is, thank you for using a vocabulary word. And it laughs because we do it at lunch all the time. So I feel like that sometimes they'll say a word and I'll say, oh, I don't know that one. And then a lot of the authors talk about that reading, they'll read words that they don't know, and then they'll want to go look them up. And I feel like reading is where I learn new words. My mother also bought me a book that is, I think, 100 new vocabulary words, and there's the calendars that are new vocabulary words. And then there's also the Sadler word of the week, and I don't always know them because I know levels E, F, and H really well. So I think those are my ways: calendars and books specifically for vocabulary, and then really wanting to use them, and then talking to other authors because they always give me new words I don't know.
Okay, so here's a comment and a question. My students do try to use their vocabulary words, but often use them incorrectly.
Yes.
Discouraging for them, a lot more work for me.
Yes.
Ideas? Ideas?
Yeah, and I think it goes back to the idea of finding the right synonym at the beginning. And so what I do is that when we start the day, we talk about 2 vocabulary words each day. That's sort of how we do it. And so when we talk about the first word, they write down the synonyms. We look at the Sadler book and they find the synonyms that work best. But we also look at the example sentence it gives, and then they have to write an example sentence using that word. And so I talk and I model some example sentences, but the sentences they write have to be about what they love. So I had one student who loved Kim Kardashian. All her sentences were about Kim Kardashian. Another student loves Breaking Bad. Not necessarily what I would recommend, but it really helped him be motivated to write his vocabulary sentences. Somebody else wanted to talk about musicals. And then they share those sentences. So we take the first, usually about 7 minutes, and by hearing lots of example sentences, and when the example sentences were wrong, I would say, thank you for playing, it's not quite right, and I would help them rewrite their sentence. So I think it's really studying that definition carefully at the beginning and making sure that they have a good model synonym and they have some good example sentences that they hear and know before they try it on their own completely. Does that make sense, Laura?
Yes, of course. Yeah. We have another question. Do you have any suggestions for books that are useful with high school students that contain activities and the repeated vocabulary in sentences and the such as you have said when answering your second question? So do you have any suggestions for books that are useful with high school students that perhaps contain activities, maybe and have repeated vocabulary in the sentences? So that might be the vocabulary workshop program from Sadler.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like that's, and I honestly have looked at all the different vocabulary programs. I go to NCTE every year. I think the Sadler one is the best, and I'm trying very hard to be unbiased. And it really does have lots of different model sentences. You can go online if you buy the books, and there's lots of extra model sentences. The students, they can snap a QR code, and there's somebody reading 2 model sentences out loud, which also sort of goes back to answer the last question. If they snap that code, here's the word, here is the definition, here are 2 example sentences, so they can hear more and more example sentences before they try them themselves. So there's that, and then any of my activities on the blog work to sort of integrate the vocabulary there. So yeah, that's what I know.
I think that's really important that you bring in your blog at the same time, because I'm hoping we're answering the question correctly, that they're looking for a vocabulary book, a vocabulary development book, or if you're looking for something else like a trade book or something like that with activities to build vocabulary, please clarify your question. But to piggyback what Sarah said, you know, the book is the book. It's an instructional program, but there's so much more online, and to engage students in their way of learning is important to do that. Okay, we have a attendee that would like to know if there is a part 2 to this webinar, which thank you so much for asking. And there is. Actually, we've been doing these webinars. Sarah has been joining us for, I guess, every month now. We do have the next one for March 16th, and all of you will be invited. We will go ahead and send you all an invitation to the March 16th webinar, which will be about springtime activities. It's a pretty kind of like fun type of thing that Sarah loves to do and loves to share her latest and greatest activities with us. So are there any other questions? I'm scanning here. Here's one. Will you provide a transcript for this webinar? We do not provide a transcript per se. What we do is that we have the recorded webinar and the handouts available to you that will come in a link, come to you in an email, a link to the webinar. So you'll be able to hear it and see it.
And if anyone wants a sample, I was going to say, if anyone wants a sample of the vocabulary book, email us back, and we can talk to the person who represents Sadler in your area and get you a book to look at to see what the program looks like.
We have a comment here. So in the middle school, they used a competitor. I don't want to say their name. And I feel like I need more direction with vocabulary. So what are your suggestions?
Again, I mean, I think anything on the blog is great. My personal strategy is that we do 2 vocabulary words a day, and then that gets us to 10 on Fridays if we do 2 quickly on Fridays, or maybe we do 3 on a couple days, or we do 4 on Thursdays. So we have quizzes every Friday, and they're really writing sentences with the words and having the kids integrate them into what else we're talking about, whether it be a work of literature, or a research project or whatnot. So that's how I do things, and there's some information about that on the blog. And if you want more direction, again, I was going to say at the beginning of our book, we have a whole how to use the program, here are different ways to do it, and so that's what I can offer.
Yes, all good. Thank you so much. So some of you have the same question of where to find samples and to see our programs. So you can go to sadlerschool.com, and that drop down vocabulary, Sarah's going to flip back to it. Actually, that's it. That's the front page, the home page, and then you put your grade level, your grade span, and then the next slide will be your program page. So on the right-hand side of it, it says view online samples and request a sample. So you can go ahead and view that and have some fun clicking around. It's kind of a neat website we had done in the past year. So the blog address is vocabgal.com, or you can go through Sadler School. If you're on that, go to the right-hand side and go to, well, there you go, right there, sadlerschool.com or vocabgal.com. So, Sarah, once again, you've shared great ideas. You've helped, I hope you've helped a lot of teachers out there with that stress of preparing students for high-stakes tests with the tips that you've shared, as well as the fun activities, which, you know, vocabulary can be overwhelming for kids. It can be discouraging, as one of our participants said. So you've shared some activities that will engage them and possibly bring in some fun.
Cool.
So thank you so much for being with us, and we look forward to March 16th when you'll join us again.
Thank you so much.
Okay, and thank you everyone for participating this afternoon. We hope you get home safely and that the weather isn't too bad in your neck of the woods. Take care. We'll see you on March 16th. Bye now.